Okay, I got sad quality sound, probably. I don't know if I can clean it up in post, but we're doing it this way anyway. So, as I've been roaming around, being an intern, and doing IT things like setting up network stuff, I've noticed a couple things, and I've seen a couple things that have really, really turned my head, like 180 turned my head, and it's just been really, really weird, because basically what I'm doing is helping clean up the messed up DIY network from a previous IT director and making it more professional. And you can see the very DIY, very low cost, low effort, how do I put it, setup going on here. And it really, in some cases, it grinds my gears. In other cases, I want to throw my head through the wall. Or in a few cases, I want to shoot my toes off one by one. Now, I've only got 10 toes to work with if I shoot my toes off. But I could do it. It wouldn't be, very comfortable, but I could do it, and I'd only have 10 to do it with. And I think I have too many situations to where I would want to shoot my toes off to make it worth it, because then I might have to go to fingers or reach further into my foot in order to continue to satiate that need. And that's a sad part. So there have been a few cases. I don't know whether it's not necessarily in order of severity, but there are cases, the biggest one being the way that the MDF is set up. And for those that are unaware of what MDF might stand for, it's basically the main distribution area, like frame or what all, from where the network comes in to a company or an organization. So you've got the internet service provider that comes in, they hook their line in, and then from there, the organization manages it at their MDF, which is where their main switches are, where their main router is, and their patch panels. In a home situation, which most of you are going to be in and looking at for the most part, the MDF would be basically your Comcast router, your Starlink router, or your modem that Comcast provides, what have you, kind of where your internet comes in, and then your router, in essence, that you have hooked up to that, or is built into the system that your ISP provides, and that distributes to your home, and that's basically your MDF. And normally, in a company situation, the MDF is managed by the company themselves, and the ISP only comes up to a certain point to where they're managing it, and then you're basically on your own. You can have a different arrangement at home depending on your service provider, but yeah, it generally works out to where the ISP doesn't take as much stewardship per se over the networking as they would in a home situation. But anyway, that's too off in the weeds. So the MDF, not only is it not secured, it's using this mounting system that basically looks like it's either Connects or Logic toys from way back when. So you've got metal bars that are screwed together, it's kind of numbered with the rack, so it's an open freestanding rack behind a locked door, but the locked door is not all that secure because it's an old doorknob lock, and the key, when I was looking at it, is a very simple lock, like very easy to pick. Like I could probably pick it about as quick as a master lock. And that's kind of sad to say, but it's since moved to a more locking rack cabinet, so it's a little bit more secure. We're still working on putting it in. But kind of the biggest sin in the MDF are the patch cables that are being used. So everything's organized in such a way that about 50% of the patch panels could be looped down to the switch or router, to the switch that's like right under it or right near it. But, I mean, even then, most of the patch panels were put together rather than being spaced around the switches. So you literally had basically patch panel 1, 2, and 3, or in this case they were labeled A, B, C, basically stacked on top of each other. And then you had the switches right below that, basically switch 0, 1, 2, that you would hook into. So you were reaching past another patch panel to get to the switches below. In some cases, this might make sense to some people, but if you're trying to minimize the amount of Ethernet cable you're using, then it doesn't make sense. The other thing, too, is the patch cables that were being used were supposedly Cat 6 or Cat 6A, but they were these really, really thin, unshielded twisted pair cat cables that have basically hair thin wires in them that apparently met spec for Cat 6 or Cat 6A, but had a crosstalk out the wazoo. So the IT director in this particular place, he was trying to tone out a cable at one time, and he couldn't quite do it because of all the crosstalk. He would try and take the probe to figure out which cable it was that was toning off of, but he couldn't because every other cable would sound off with it because of how thin these cables were. And they were unshielded on top of that, so you've got thin cables, and they crosstalk out the wazoo. But not just that. These are probably like 3-foot long patch cables that are covering a distance of like maybe 6 inches. So you had needless extra cable that was hanging around doing nothing, and it looked like a mess. A Techgore mess, and it was horrible. It was, and we had to sift through, had to trace each one to figure out where it went to, what port it went to, so that when the cables got moved to the new rack that we had to put together, we put them exactly as they were, so that later on we could put things together and have things worked out. The bad part is we still have to go through and replace a lot of those patch cables, and in some cases we've had to use them in places to fill in temporarily so that we can have those patch cables, the network, those segments of the network plugged in so that they're not completely out of the water. The hard part with this is the old IT director loved these cables, but I think it's just purely due to the ease of, all I have to do is plug it in and go. I don't have to make my own cables. Whereas if he would have done it right, he would have made his own cables, and in some cases they may have been shielded. But that's neither here nor there. We've since cleared out some of the unneeded networking stuff, but there's still a lot in there. And this closet is just still full to the brim of old stuff and equipment. And I'm gonna split this into another so that I can go over the other stuff. But just the MDF alone was a mess. There's some sort of organization to it, and I found a spreadsheet that explains where things supposedly go for some of the MDFs in some of the other schools, but it's bad. How much is covered up by just these cables? I mean, it's nice because as we're transitioning things from the old patch panels to the new patch panels, we have that leeway to let it hang there, I guess. But once everything's said and done, it's going to be much shorter at the end of the day. So, we'll see what happens with the next segments, but yet more in the future. If you enjoyed the video, then like, comment, subscribe, feed the algorithm, boost the video up, share this video with your friends. If you found it informative or you just want to chat, I've got plenty of places in the description, Discord, Guilded, and what have you. Check those out, and I will see you guys in the next one.